This is chapter 41. I'm going to give you a little background as we walk through just a heavenly example of a plan. Now, Joseph has been sold into slavery by his what? By his brothers. And rather than Joseph being angry about his past, and rather than Joseph being bitter about his past, Joseph decides to just be who he's supposed to be. And God begins to use Joseph in a mighty manner. And here's what's going on in the land that Joseph is living in the house of Pharaoh. There has been this dream that's taken place, and Joseph has come to interpret this dream. And Joseph said in this dream, there will come 7 years of great plenty. Anybody excited about that? How you're going to have 7 years, and it's going to be great. Anybody like to live under that economic plan? 7 years and there's going to be great plenty. Where? Throughout all the land of Egypt. But look at verse 30. But after the 7 years, there will arise 7 years of what? Famine. It's great for 7 years, and what happens for the next 7 years? It's awful. It's bad. And all the plenty will be forgotten about in the land of Egypt. Have you ever looked back in your life and thought, boy, I made so much money, and I was so excited, but then things got so rough, and things are so rough right now, you can't even think about the past. This is what's happening in this era, and all the plenty will be forgotten. They forgot it. It's so bad. The only thing they can have their mind on is right now. But guess what? There's a plan coming. God in His grace is letting them know ahead of time, you got 14 years in front of you. 7 are going to be good, and 7 are going to be awful, but heaven's got a plan. Look at heaven's plan, verse 31. And the plenty will be unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe. It's going to be very good, and it's going to be very bad. Now look at verse 34. Jump down to verse 34. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years. What is he teaching? During these 7 years when it's good, listen to me, church. If you're listening, say, I am. Put something aside. Has it ever been so good that you had extra? And you could have put something aside, but you didn't. And this is where man's plan contradicts God's plan. God is teaching them when all is well, don't live well. Put something aside. Somebody would say, well, I've just always trusted on God. I've always lived with everything we've gotten, and everything went out the door, but God's always met every one of our needs. But listen to me, the goal is not always about your needs. The goal is about the needs of others. And as we are venturing toward consistently giving, it is the idea that we're allowing heaven to dictate our plan. And we realize it's a good plan. Look at verse 35. And let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities. And let them what? Keep it. When it's really good, let them take 1/5 and let them keep it. Now go to verse 36. 36, the food that shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish throughout the famine. Let's have a plan before the drought comes. Amen? This is heaven's plan. Look at verse 37. And this has just stopped me in my tracks as I was studying for this. This plan pleased who? Who's Pharaoh? Pharaoh? Is he a good king or an ungodly king? Understand this. God's plan. Maybe this won't hit you the way it hit me. God's plan pleased an ungodly man. An ungodly man got on board with God's plan. Isn't that sad? That an ungodly man could get on board with God's plan, but godly people are content with that? They'll defend it. They'll embrace it. They're okay with a slave. Here you have an ungodly king and his servants, and they're like, this pleases us. They didn't hit y'all the way that it did me. Verse 38, and Pharaoh said to his servants, look at this, can we find a man like this in whom the Spirit of God... No, what? A man like what? A man that has the Spirit of God in him in such a way that says, let's get ready for the future by putting aside something today. Listen, you need somebody in your life that will teach you that. Stop living for the day to day to day and put something aside for the future. Why? Because you have the mindset of heaven in mind. You want to be able to help people later. You want to help people. Look at verse 39. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, listen to these words, since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as what? As you.